You're not the same person you were 10 years ago. Not emotionally. Literally. Almost every atom that made up your body back then is gone, replaced quietly, without your permission, without you noticing a thing. Start with your skeleton. It feels solid, fixed, permanent, the one part of you that should stay put. It doesn't. Cells called osteoclasts dissolve old bone tissue, while osteoblasts lay down fresh bone in its place. And the whole skeleton cycles through this rebuild roughly once every decade. You're standing on a structure that's constantly being torn down and reconstructed beneath you. Your liver does it faster. Most of its cells turn over within a few hundred days. The lining of your gut replaces itself in about a week. Red blood cells last around 4 months before they're broken down. Even your taste buds die and regenerate every couple of weeks. Your body isn't one object. It's a process pretending to be an object. For a long time, this was just an assumption. Scientists suspected constant turnover but had no precise way to measure it. Until, strangely, the Cold War gave them one. Starting in the 1950s, above-ground nuclear tests pumped radioactive carbon-14 into the atmosphere. It spread through plants, into animals, into humans, spiking in nearly every living tissue on Earth, then dropping off predictably once testing went underground. Decades later, a Swedish researcher named Jonas Frisén realized that Spike had accidentally built a natural clock. By measuring carbon-14 locked into the DNA of a cell's nucleus, fixed at the moment that cell is born, his team could date individual cells inside a living person, independent of the person's own age. The results mostly confirmed what was expected, with a few genuine surprises. Rib muscle cells averaged around 15 years old. Fat cells renewed about once a decade. Intestinal lining cells turned over so fast their average age was counted in days. But some things didn't turn over at all. Neurons in your cerebral cortex, the region behind memory, thought, and personality, are essentially as old as you are. Once formed, they mostly never divide again. You're carrying many of the same cortical neurons from childhood to death. The lens of your eye works the same way. Its proteins are set before birth and never swapped out, which is a big part of why vision stiffens with age. So you're not rebuilt completely. You're rebuilt selectively. A few fixed anchors holding steady while nearly everything else churns around them. Which brings up an old philosophical problem, except your body isn't just an analogy for it. It's running the experiment in real time. The Ship of Theseus asks whether something stays the same once every part of it has been swapped out. Ancient philosophers argued about it for centuries. Your body just does it, using atoms instead of planks. An estimated 98% of them replaced within a single year. So almost none of the physical material from a decade ago is still here, and yet you feel completely continuous. Why? Part of it is how memory actually works. It isn't a fixed recording like a photo stored on a hard drive. It's closer to a recipe, a pattern of connection strengths between neurons that can be maintained and reinforced even as the molecules inside those neurons get replaced. As long as the pattern holds, and as long as those long-lived cortical neurons stay in place to anchor it, the information survives, even while nearly every atom involved turns over completely. The other part is psychological. Researchers studying identity point to something called narrative continuity. The ongoing story you tell yourself, linking yesterday's self to today's self to tomorrow's. That story doesn't need the same physical material to feel true. It only needs an unbroken chain. One memory referencing the last, regardless of what atoms happened to be present at the time. So you're less like a fixed object being preserved, and more like a wave crossing open water. The water changes constantly as the wave moves. Different molecules every moment, yet the wave keeps its shape, stays recognizable, and travels a long way before it finally breaks. Think of an old embarrassing memory you still cringe about. None of the cells that lived through that moment are still in you. Not the skin that flushed, not the muscle that tensed. What survives isn't the material, it's the pattern, replayed by a brain that isn't even fully the same brain that first recorded it. That doesn't make identity an illusion. If anything, it's the opposite. Identity turns out to be tougher than the matter it's made from, since it survives a process that would erase almost any other kind of continuity. You're not the same physical thing you were 10 years ago. You might not share a single atom with that version of yourself, and yet something unmistakably persists. Not in the matter, but in the pattern the matter keeps getting arranged into. So next time you look at an old photo and feel that strange mix of recognition and distance, trust it. You're looking at someone built from almost entirely different material, running on many of the same long-lived neurons, carrying forward the same basic pattern. A wave that's been rebuilding itself since the day you were born, still moving toward shore.